And welcome to the Michael Zehr Show. Coming to you Saturday morning. Yes, it's not Friday morning. Today's Saturday morning. Let's see, January 28th, 2023. Coming to you live from the Rising Eagle Studios here at the Warrior Healing Center in Sierra Vista, Arizona. So, today, my special guest veteran is John Firestone. John, thank you so much for coming down out of the mountains this morning and sitting down and talking with me. And I didn't get a chance to do a show last 2 weeks. So I really appreciate you taking the time out and allowing us to sit down with you today and do a special Saturday segment. And if we get any audience members that pop online here, if you have any questions for myself or for John, just put them down in the comments section and we will answer your questions as the live stream goes. Hopefully it's live streaming and not, because there was a interview I did like about a month ago, and we did this and we did the whole thing, and then we found out that it went, instead of live stream, it went to saving it, and then it had to be uploaded. So it still got up there, but it just wasn't live stream at the moment. So
all right.
So well, we got a couple people watching. So welcome, good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining us again. I'm sitting down here with John Firestone, and we're going to talk about his military career and some of the community activities and things that he does within our area. So again, John, I do want to say thank you, and let's get started. Where were you at, like, as a kid, born and raised and stuff like that? Where did it all start for you?
So I grew up mostly in Pennsylvania, central Pennsylvania.
Okay.
Spent part of my youth growing up in the foster system.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's common. There's a lot of kids who end up going through the system for one reason or another. After central Pennsylvania, I joined the military. I actually got to, when you age out at 18, you got to have something to do.
Right.
So luckily at the time, they were doing a split op program with the Army, and you would go to basic training between your junior and senior year of high school. And then...
Really? I've never heard of that.
Yeah, it was a split op program at the time, and you were supposed to go between your junior and senior year of high school to basic, and then you do your AIT after your senior year, and then you go into the reserves.
Okay.
And so that first year, you're with a reserve unit. And my first unit was Gettysburg.
Wow.
Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. They used to have a reserve unit, and then after I left, it changed to National Guard. I don't know if it's still there, but that was my first unit. But after my senior year, I decided to go active duty.
I was going to ask you, was my next question, is what is it that inspired you to join the military, and what branch did you join?
So I joined the Army, and that's actually a very good question that leads into even just about everything else. The whole reason why I joined the military was from G.I. Joe, the cartoon.
Cool. Okay.
And that's wrote and conceived by a guy named Larry Hama, and he was a U.S. vet as well. And so he ended up penning a lot of the early G.I. Joe stuff, and I fell hook, line, and sinker into that whole everything about it. I absolutely loved it.
Uh-huh.
And to be honest, and to my own naivete, I still thought I was going to get a code name after basic training and get to wear my own uniform and stuff like that. And of course, none of that happened.
It's funny you said that, because Tim asked, what was your code name?
So it was, I wanted it to be Firefly after one of the characters, and since I'm a Firestone, I wanted to be Firefly.
Uh-huh.
But my drill sergeants had a different idea and just called me Fire Nuts. And
Fire
so,
Nuts?
Yeah, and that's a more polite one.
And where did you go to basic training at?
So I went to Fort Benning, Georgia.
Fort Benning for
Yep,
basic?
yep,
Okay.
Sand Hill. Um,
And you were how old at the time? You said you were
17.
17,
Yeah,
yeah, because
went
you were a
between,
senior,
yeah,
right?
between
Okay,
my junior and senior year.
right.
Yeah, so I was a very fast runner in high school. I was a cross country guy. Can't tell now, but back then I was a cross country runner. And then when I came back from basic training to my last year, I actually was a little bit slower because I had bulked up a little bit from physical activities they have you do. So I really actually kind of liked basic training in a way because that was kind of the GI Joe type thing.
Right.
And then once you get to your duty station and reality sets in, it's a different flavor.
One of the best tips I was given when I went in was just keep your mouth shut and do what you were told. Don't ask questions.
Yeah.
So that's what helped me get through. I had a good piece of advice there. So you finished. You're at Fort Gordon for basic, and
Fort Benning.
or Fort Benning.
Yep.
I'm sorry, Fort Benning, Georgia. And then where did you go for AIT, and what was your MOS? What did you do?
So when I turned active duty, infantry wasn't being offered, and there were only two jobs that I could do.
Okay.
And one was military intelligence, but I had a charge on me at the time, so I couldn't take military intelligence. And there was another one called early warning systems operator, and I said, well, what's that? And they said, we don't know, we think you go around putting sensors on trees or something. So this is over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, I'll do that. And they sent me to Fort Bliss,
Texas.
So,
that's
yeah.
where I had basic. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, and this was actually to be an air defense artillery scout.
Yeah.
So that was the job, and we had this radar system that we would set up, and it was cool at the time, but I'm sure it's low tech now.
So is that where you were at for your training at Fort Bliss, or that's where
For
your
AIT.
first duty? Okay, yeah.
Yeah, I went to AIT there, and then I went to Korea for my first duty station.
Okay, so when did you finish up with your AIT training then?
Summer of 94.
Okay.
Summer of 94, I finished AIT and then went to Korea, so I think it was September.
And your first duty assignment you said was Korea. How did that come about? They didn't, did they ask you, or they just said, "Oh, this is your first duty"? Because sometimes when you enlist, you used to be able to choose your first duty station.
Yeah. So I had a friend at the time, and he had just gotten married, and they were going to have a kid. And when we all got our orders, I was supposed to stay at Fort Bliss, and he was supposed to go to Korea, and he was heartbroken. And I was like, you know what? I don't mind. I want to get as far away from Pennsylvania and go around the world, so let's trade.
Things.
Yeah, and so we ended up trading.
That's cool.
Yeah, we ended up trading, and he stayed at Bliss. He got to move his wife down there, and I don't know what happened with them, but yeah, that's how I went to Korea. And then from there, we went to Fort Campbell. Me and some other people that had went to Korea together, we all ended up at Fort Campbell. And then from Fort Campbell, we had some deployments to the Middle East.
Well, when you were in Korea, though, for your very first duty assignment, what was your daily routine like there? Doing this new job that you had just learned how to do, how did it apply to what you were doing in Korea?
So basically, we would go PMCS our vehicles every day. We would go down to the motor pool and make sure the vehicles were ready to go, and that was kind of it. That's most of my memories from the beginning. As a side note, since I was in the foster system, I never got my driver's license when I was below 18. So when I got to Korea, they said, well, you're going to get your license now. You're going to get a license for a 5-ton, deuce and a half, and a Humvee with trailers. I said, well, I don't know how to drive. And they said, well, you're going to learn. So, so I had some peers take me around our camp, which is Camp Stanley, which I think they just shut down not too long ago. But we would drive around Camp Stanley in the 5-ton. And I was so scared. I was so scared of doing all this stuff. I ended up doing pretty good. And I ended up being duty driver a lot because I got this 5-ton license with a trailer, so I ended up having to be a duty driver a lot. I ended up having to drive missiles from below Osan Air Force Base up to the DMZ.
Oh, wow.
And I ended up getting my expert driver award during my first year in Korea.
I didn't know that was a thing.
Yeah,
How about that?
Yeah.
Expert driving award.
Expert driver award, yeah. I didn't kill anybody the whole time.
It had to be kind of scary too, having those missiles that you're,
I was
hauling.
petrified because we drove through Seoul.
Right.
We drove through Seoul and over bridges, and there were crazy drivers at the time. Korea was still coming up, and so there was too many vehicles on the road, and I was so scared. I think that's why I ended up being a decent driver.
Let's see what this question is here. We've all read newspapers from India regarding your controversial life. Care to comment?
India? Not sure if that might be a typo.
Yeah, I don't know. Tim, what did you mean there? But so you're in Korea. How long were you in Korea for?
1 year.
For a whole year.
Mm-hmm.
And then you went from there, you said, to Fort Campbell, Kentucky?
Yes.
And what year was that?
That would be 95.
Okay.
That would be,
So you've been in now for what, 2 years? Almost
active
2 years?
Active duty, 1 year, but 2 years with that reserve time as well.
Right.
Yep.
But that counts towards your active duty time of service.
It does.
Yeah. So what was your rank at that time?
E2.
Okay. Yeah.
No, I think I left.
Mosquito wing, huh?
Yeah. I think I might have left as an E2 or an E3. It's been a long time. So.
And so you get to Fort Campbell, and that's kind of close to Pennsylvania. They're kind of moving you back home again, aren't they? Back to your old stomping grounds.
Kind of, yeah. It was far enough away to be different. I wasn't the biggest fan of Fort Campbell because it was so flat. The terrain is so flat, and I kind of have somewhat of an aversion to flat terrain. So I really liked Korea because it was very mountainous. And I'm just, as a visual artist, I really like those type of landscapes and the landscapes that we have here around Zehr Vista. I love this type of stuff. But Fort Campbell.
That's what he meant. So you deny media reports that you stole the most beautiful lady from the Orient's most powerful family.
Yes. Well. Yes, I did, as a matter of fact. So after Fort Campbell, I ended up going to college in Murray State, which is in Kentucky.
Okay.
It's very West Kentucky, and that's where I met my wife, who is one of the most beautiful women from the Orient that I stole away. Her family is Pakistani.
Okay.
And they came over to Canada and then down to the U.S. And they were in the hotel business. But she was a student in the art department that I was in at Murray State. And so all I saw was, pretty girl just paying attention to me.
Right.
I didn't realize I was going to have to deal with the whole cultural issue of arranged marriages and all kinds of fun stuff like that.
Okay, you have to explain all this.
Yeah.
First off, I understand that you met at college, but how did you meet? How exactly did that go down? You said that she was in the art department.
Yeah.
So did friends hook you up, or did you just have the courage to go up and talk to her and introduce yourself, or how did it go about?
So I was a rugby player, and
now that's a tough sport.
Yeah, it's a very fun. I loved my time as a rugby player. It was heck or worse on my body. I even broke my painting hand playing rugby, and it never healed right, so it still messes with me. But during that time, you kind of have a different sort of attitude as a rugby player, I guess. So I saw her, and she was just pretty to me, and I thought, heck, she's cute, and I'll go say hi. So I did, and she shot me down. And then I saw her again in another party, and I tried again, and she shot me down again. And I'm like, okay, that's cool.
Strike two.
Strike two, that's fine. And then there was another party, And then finally, I guess, she had had enough of dating whoever she was dating. And so she settled for me, which I gladly accepted, and then, married her. And
Now, how are you going there? Were you still active duty?
I was not.
So
I was
you
not.
had gotten out
I
before?
got out. Yeah.
Okay,
and
all
then
right.
I went full time to Murray State, and was using my GI Bill, but I still have student loans I'm paying off from back in the
Today, huh?
Yeah. Well, I ended up going for a master's degree after that, so really
Okay.
I'm still trying to pay off those debts.
Did you go back in the military, or when you separated,
I
that
did
was
not.
it?
That was it.
Okay, so after you separated from Fort Campbell, you went to Murray. I'm just trying to follow along here. You met your wife,
Mm-hmm.
and how long did it take before you got married?
It took us a while because dealing with being kind of an outsider and going into just kind of a different cultural setup, it took a while to say, hey, look, no, I'm the right guy. And I've told Tim about this a lot in the past. I call it my interview, where I had to go out there and really struggle with changing the minds of every adult in that family who didn't want their daughter to marry a white guy.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Which brings up Tim's next comment. What do you have to say about reports that your family's men facing you down to measure your manhood?
Yeah, no, that was real. That was legit. In fact, I had to travel out to where they were and go into a room with nothing but the men of the family, a small room, where we talked for 2.5 hours. And when I say talked, it was heated. They didn't want anything to do with me. They didn't want me being there. They didn't want me in the picture at all. And I had to go through each one of these men, one of them being the father of the son that my wife was supposed to be arranged to be married, her own father, who didn't want anything to do with it, and everybody else. And it was question after question after question of, what are you going to do if this happens? What are you going to do if that happens? And every bit of the way trying to paint me in a picture of where I wouldn't be good enough. I wouldn't be the right guy for the job. 2.5 hours.
Wow.
And everything worked. I walked in there a bug, but I walked out a human. And all the men were like, okay, hey, look, we're going to accept you. Do you want to break? I said, I'm not sure what you're talking about. They're like, do you want some water? Do you want some food? Do you want some like candy or something? I'm like, no. What's going on? They say, well, you're done with us, but now the women are coming in.
Uh-oh.
So it was 2 hours then facing the mothers of the family. And then they offered me another break. And I'm like, no, I'm good. Let's just keep
going.
What's going on? And then it was like the older married cousins coming in to talk to me. So it was, it was intense. It was like the whole family came out to challenge me.
To interview you.
To interview me and
make sure you were a worthy suitor.
Make sure I was a worthy suitor. And then I passed the test. And now, to be fair, all of her family has accepted the whole thing, and they're a pretty good and stable family. So it's good for my kid to have that relationship with his family.
With their grandparents? And
yeah, exactly. And we have a much better relationship with her side of the family than with my side of the family, which a lot of us are estranged for various reasons from where we grew up. Yep.
Well, yeah, that makes it even better. That makes it even better because of what you just said, because family is important, especially to young children growing up. And I think that as a grandparent, I love that connection with my grandkids. I can't imagine my life without that connection with my grandkids. So I'm glad to see that your wife's family was so positive in the fact that after you guys got married, now they've got a grandson, right? A boy.
Yep.
So they have a grandson. How many children do you have?
We just have the one.
One boy.
Yeah.
And so they have to be pretty ecstatic to be having a grandkid too, because that's
They are, and most of their kids have had kids too, so they've got a bigger family. But my wife and I, we've stood the test of time. You know, we had our trial, we had our big trial in the very beginning, and so it is to the point where there are other people in the extended family that say, why don't we have what John and Nadia have? We want to be able to choose. We want to have what they have. You know, we don't have to have the the parents select for us, we could go. It can work. This love marriage thing.
I'm really fascinated by the fact that you're marrying into a different culture, and the fact that they were so accepting of you. Here you are. How long have you been married now? How many years? Not to put you on the spot, but
oh man, 19 years
19, okay.
of being married, but we've been together for longer. So because we had to, once we decided we were going to give this a shot, so it was, I think 2001 is when we were committed.
I just think that's great. That's a good story. I appreciate you sharing that part of your life with us. Thank you. So going back to the military, you got out at Fort Campbell after how many years?
So it was 3 years active, but then with my reserve time, it's 4 years. And
4 years.
Yeah.
And when you got out, where did you go? You went right into college at Murray?
I went right into college at Murray State. Okay. I had some vet buddies who got out a few months before me and had already set up shop there. There was about 3 of them who set up shop. And so they said, why don't you just come live with us and go to school here? And I said, great. And so they moved me into part of that house. And within those 3 months, one of the guys had already got married off. And then not too long after that, one of the other guys got hooked up, and he's still with that wife and their kids. And I still kind of keep in touch with some of these guys sometimes. But it wasn't too long for him to get married off, and then I got married off by the time I got out too. So college is awesome. Do it.
So looking back on the time that you spent in the Army, what would you say is your most memorable thing? What did you gain from it the most, and what was your most memorable moment? And I could ask you like 1,000 different questions along that line, but we'll just start right there. What your favorite memory of serving?
Well, being older, I remember the good stuff more than dwelling on any bad stuff. So some of it I would just, and I stress this even with Cub Scouts and the youth that I deal with, there's a certain structure that you get in the military where someone with my background, even being an artist, an artistic type and a sensitive type my whole life, that particular structure and foundation, coming from a broken home, that sort of foundation and structure just really gave me a lot to build off of from the whole rest of my life.
Wow, that's heavy.
It is, and that's not necessarily like a glamorous thing or like a cool thing, but it's an important thing.
It's important, yeah, definitely.
And so I'm always going to be appreciative of that, and I'm always going to promote that to a lot of people and say, hey, look, you could get so many different types of jobs, have so many different types of opportunities in there, and it could not be your cup of tea. At the end of the day, maybe the military is not your cup of tea. It wasn't mine, wasn't for other people, but it was still great. I wouldn't trade it in.
Right.
It gave me a whole lot. It gave me a whole lot to build off of the whole rest of my life. I can say, I owe a lot of that success to spending some time serving.
Yes.
So the most fun things, I don't know, some of the training things that you do. I got to do like air assault school, and I got to do a few other schools that I had fun with. Being deployed is interesting. It's not always great or anything like that, but it's very important in terms of life experience and experience with people, experience with humans in these type of situations. And I don't know, I got a lot more from the military than I put in, I think.
So so you got out, let's see, you went in 94, so you served...
I went active 94.
94,
yep.
So you got out in 97 then?
Right, yep.
Okay, and then you started going to college right away in same year, 97 then,
yep,
right?
Yep.
Okay. I'm just trying to follow the track line here because one of my questions I'm going to ask you is how you ended up getting here, so be prepared to ask that a little bit later here.
All right.
So of the duty stations that you were at, you shared with us Fort Bliss, Korea, um, Fort Campbell. What was your favorite duty station and why?
Favorite duty station. Oh wow.
Or favorite assignment, maybe. None of them?
None of them were my favorite. I wouldn't. All of them were important. I mean, in some ways, maybe Korea because I was a kid. You know, I consider. I mean, you're an adult, but I was so young and everything was so new, and you're in a foreign country for a year, and you know.
And you got to see the DMZ. Not everybody gets to see that.
Yeah, I got to see the DMZ. Yeah. And you're right. Not everybody gets to see that.
That's a hot spot, you know. At any minute.
I got to yell swear words across the river and have North Koreans yell swear words back at us, which was fun.
I've heard that from other service members sharing that when they were up on Korea.
Yeah.
Giving the old finger and other signs. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and then just dealing with soldiers from different nations is kind of neat, and just having the opportunity to. I had nothing really going into it, and then getting the opportunity to do so much stuff was just really cool. So I don't really have a favorite duty station.
No.
I was at Al Jaber in Kuwait, and when I was there...
When you were in the military?
Yeah.
What was that, like a TDY assignment, or...?
It was a deployment. It was one of these deployments to patrol the no-fly zone since I was an air defense scout.
Okay. Well, we didn't go into this stuff. You got to share if you can. I mean, I don't want if it's classified.
No, it's not classified. The thing is, and the reason why I like talking with Tim about this is
Firestone's life will be the subject of a Netflix series someday.
No, only as a byline to Tim's story. But Tim being in the Air Force, and you know how all of us service members like to rib each other.
Yes.
It's great. Well. Yeah. We were over there at this Air Force base as air defense, but they got A-10s. And those A-10s are just incredible. And those A-10s take off, and when
they're tank killers, right?
I know, yeah. They're just amazing, and just to hear the cannon on the front of an A-10 go off, it's a life-changing, soul-changing experience. You're like, I am glad I'm on these guys' side. And so it was just kind of weird because, we would be out in a position with a radar, an M16, and a saw, and there's these A-10s back here, and if anything's going to happen, we'll just tell them guys,
Yeah. So you were deployed then to, where did you say again?
So that was Al Jaber in Kuwait. And the reason why I brought that up was because when I was there, that was when Martha McSally was she was the first female combat fighter pilot.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was a big deal for all of us. We're like, well, there's a female combat pilot here? And it was her. And she ended up being the representative for Arizona for a while.
Yeah, that's cool.
Yeah, it was kind of neat.
It's just, so when you were there during the invasion of Kuwait then, right?
No.
Or, I mean, right afterwards?
Afterwards.
When you went in, when they, okay.
Yep, afterwards.
Wow.
Yep.
That had to be an interesting assignment in itself.
It was interesting, but not terribly interesting. There was a
you're
lot
putting
of
your life on the line, though. I mean,
we kind of were, but not in the way that some soldiers get a deployment. They get a lot harsher deployments.
Right.
My deployment would be relatively easy compared to theirs. So I spent a lot of time in the desert playing two-man spades with somebody else, and
spades and hearts.
Yeah. So that's
pinochle.
What we did.
Didn't play any pinochle.
No, didn't play pinochle. So that was most of our time was spent that. I mean, there were some stressful times for some people, but really I had a pretty good, easy deployment.
Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
What was it like over there for you? I mean, you'd never been there, so you're experiencing a whole different, what's the word I'm trying to look for? Culture. It's a whole different culture, a whole different...
Yeah, we didn't really get to learn too much of the culture while we were there, but for me, being an artist and being a landscape artist my whole life, for me, the significance was really that type of sand dune desert landscape and just the solitude being out where we were, and kind of the history of the area in the landscape, and those type of sites. Those were all the really impressionable things on me. And there were some mountains not too far away, but there would also be weird humidity that would roll in from the sea and kind of fog the areas at certain times in a sand dune desert environment, you know. And maybe there might be a herd of camels that come through, and they're big, ugly, and loud and scary in their own way because they're so big. And so a lot of the impressions I got were kind of all related to who I feel like I really am, which is this art guy. And all these different places, really, it's my impressions of the landscape and the different qualities and flavors of the visuals around me. So they still had, and I don't know if it was oil well fires going on at the time, or if it was all just natural gas they were burning off. But out in the distance, there were, towers that still had burning all night long, and that was neat too in different ways. Just all those visuals that I got to see from around the world and all the different places I got to go were.
It was neat looking, but unfortunately, some of our service members ended up getting toxic exposures.
Yeah.
From that, and illnesses and VA disability from it. And
Yeah. I don't know if that's gonna happen with me. I've got some lung issues now. Who knows?
Gotta get on it.
Yeah.
And don't put it off, because one thing I always try to encourage veterans to do. So many come in and they say, "Oh, I wish I'd have done this 20 years ago, and my wife urged me and kept after me to do it, and I'm finally here to do it." Yeah, don't put off filing a claim. If you feel that you got a service-connected disability, you definitely need to file for that. Don't put it off.
You're right.
What's the worst they can do, right? Say no. Right?
You're right. You're right. I need to not be lazy. I need to do this stuff, but I'm working at it. I'm working on myself. I'm trying to be better to do this type of stuff too. And I've talked with some other vets that they're like, "Look, man, just do it." Everybody is telling me the same thing.
Right.
I apologize for being stubborn.
No, it's just hearing it is one thing, but actually doing it, it takes a commitment, because once you open that paperwork, some vets don't like to deal with the government, with the VA especially, and I can understand that that thinking and that fear, because sometimes it takes quite a long time for some of these claims to be developed, and that's no bueno, not good. I wanted to get back now to asking you, I know I'm not a professional interviewer, by the way, by no means. I'm talking to you as if just a normal Joe having a conversation.
Yeah.
One thing I wanted to ask you about is, now you're married, right?
Yep.
And you're in Kentucky. Are you married in Kentucky?
No, we got married after Kentucky, so we got engaged
in
there.
Kentucky, okay.
And then she had to go back with her family for a while, and I went back to Pennsylvania for
okay.
a while.
All right.
Yep.
So then, but you came together.
Yep.
Got married.
Yep.
Where was your first place together? Where did you guys go?
Pennsylvania.
You stayed in Pennsylvania?
Yeah, we were in Pennsylvania, and in fact, I got a federal job. I worked at DLA, the Defense Logistics Agency.
Yes.
And DDSP, which was a giant automated warehouse in that area. And a lot of people call it the New Cumberland Army Depot. So it was in this town, basically where I grew up. It had always been there. And I got out of college, and people were like, maybe just try to get up in at the depot. And since I was a vet, they hired me on, and I've been with the federal government ever since.
Oh, okay.
So doing different jobs, moving around, but I started on the dock.
Were these
trucks
GS jobs, or?
In the beginning, they were not. They were WG.
Okay.
Yeah. So just working in the warehouse, loading UPS trucks and FedEx trucks and DHL trucks for a few years, and then I was doing different jobs in DLA, and then I moved over to DISA, a different agency, and then that's how I came down here. I needed out of Dodge. I couldn't deal with Pennsylvania anymore.
Okay.
Yeah, couldn't deal with it anymore. I had to get out.
How did you end up coming to Fort Huachuca then?
So
you were in Pennsylvania.
I was in Pennsylvania. my wife, who I'm lucky to have, had never been west of the Mississippi. And I said, look, trust me, it's beautiful out there.
And you'd never been in Arizona before, had you?
I had.
Oh, you had been?
Yeah,
Okay.
I had. I'd traveled here. I'd been here as a youth, traveling around.
Okay.
I am lucky to travel. I really like travel. And so I said, trust me, please just trust me. And she said, if we're going to do this, I've got some conditions. So we had her list of conditions. And then basically I took a look at the map and I could say, okay, these particular cities are cities that I'm going to look into getting a job at. And I don't care if it's a downgrade, a lateral, or whatever. It's time to move. It's time to get out. And she didn't want to deal with shoveling snow anymore. So I'm like, okay, all right, that was one of her conditions. And so this was one of the cities that were on the list. And it was actually, I actually got lucky to get a few offers around the same time. And one was for the Flagstaff area. But they've got to deal with a lot of snow up there.
Yes.
And the housing prices are a lot higher up there. And she's like, well, I don't want to deal with the snow. Don't take that job. And I'm like, okay, I won't take that job. So I took the one down here and they moved us out.
So you ended up coming to Arizona then? Where did you come to? Here to Fort Huachuca?
Yep. Yep.
And what was your first job here?
So I work, it was a QA/QC job. So
Which
quality
is
assurance,
quality
quality
assurance,
control
okay.
type job with DISA up on the fort.
And is that GS?
It is.
Okay.
Yeah, it is. And so
Are you still doing that job?
Yeah, I'm still doing that job, but I have a different job.
Oh,
So
okay. All right.
it's kind of one of those things where it's still dual-hatted and everything like that.
Other duties as assigned type thing?
Yeah.
So you come to Fort Huachuca in what year? You and your wife got here?
We got here 6 years ago.
6 years ago?
6 years ago this month.
And how old was your son at that time?
He was 5.
5?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, 5.
And what was it about Fort Huachuca once you guys settled here that you just really liked and made it decided this is going to be home?
So, before we did this move, my wife wasn't convinced, and she said, I don't know, we can try this out.
Uh-huh.
I'll trust you, but I don't know. And I said, give me 5 years, and if we don't like it after 5 years, we'll move. We'll move back. We'll move somewhere else. And she said, okay. We were out here for 1 year. We got our house, and she fell in love with everything about the place. And she said, you know what? I need a little bit longer. Let's do 10 years. And I said, okay.
Good for her.
We'll do 10 years, and then we'll talk. And she said, a few months later, she said, you know what? Why don't we wait till our kid's out of high school? And I'm like, okay, we'll wait. And then about a year later, she said, you know what? I don't know if I want to move. And I'm like, we don't have to. We could have a house here and travel from here. So she fell in love with it. I'm very happy about that. So it worked out for all of us. And now we have some of her family that's been coming down to stay with us.
Right.
And they're house hunting up in Tucson. So
they like the Tucson area, huh?
Well, yeah. They want to be away from where they were, which that's what I told everybody. It's better out this way. And so now they're probably looking in the Tucson area, and they keep staying with us and doing house hunting as well.
Ben, I understand they're doing a pretty nice housing development in Benson, too. Benson wouldn't be too bad either, because that's halfway between here and Tucson, if they still want some distance. But that's one of the nice things I like about this area, though, is that if you have to go to Tucson for some reason, it's really only an hour and a half drive, so that's not bad.
Yeah.
I mean, my gosh, if you go to Phoenix and you try to drive from one end of Phoenix to the other end of Phoenix, that's going to take you an hour and a half to 2 hours.
It is, yeah.
And that's, I don't know how wide it is, but I can tell you I don't think it's 100 miles. It could be, but. So you're here at Sierra Vista, Fort Huachuca, in Cochise County, and we're so glad that you guys decided to stay and remain as a member of our community. What are some of the community activities that you're involved with?
So we got involved with Cub Scouting in the area, and I'm still heavily involved with that. I'm assistant Cub Master, and I've had these kids as their den leaders since They were very young, and I've got to help watch these kids as they've grown up over the years. And
Like when they were Weeblos?
well, even younger than that.
Even younger than that?
Yeah, when these were tigers. We had them as tiger cubs. We had them as 6-year-olds, and now they're all 11-year-olds, and now they're getting ready to move to scouts.
Okay.
And so we're going around to some of the different troops and doing outdoor activities with them and seeing how they run things in the different troops. And then we're going to, most of these kids will end up getting to decide which troop they want to go to.
Okay.
And scouting takes up quite a bit of our time. It takes up quite a bit of our time. So that's most of our volunteer work is with the kids with scouting. And the rest of my time I usually spend in the studio trying to make cool looking paintings.
Well, that when I said earlier in the program that I appreciated you coming down out of the mountains, that's exactly why, because you're up there this weekend.
We're
with
doing
the scouting event. And
cold weather camping. Yeah.
John took some time out to come down and do this. So again, I appreciate that. So.
Yeah, the kids are the troop level. They're doing wilderness survival right now. So a lot of these kids are building shelters and staying in them. The Cubs can't do that yet, so we're testing our gear out. We're making sure we can stay warm through the night. We're watching the kids. They get some hot chocolate, but the scouting's pretty good for a lot of kids.
What is it that you like about scouting the most?
When I was when I was in Boy Scouts, probably the structure. Probably there's a certain way. Not that I follow that way. When I go camping on my own with my family, we don't do it the scout way. We do it however we want to do it. But there's a certain structure and a certain safety net within that structure that kind of gives the kids the ability to fail and be wrong. And that's a great way to learn. So they can try to start this fire. It didn't work. Go ahead, try it again, try it again, try it again. You don't have to. We're still going to be warm. We're still going to all be okay. So things like that, and teaching them these interesting skills. I really like the whole knot tying thing and the different types of lashings and things like that. And I like showing the kids that. I have one who can't tie their shoes yet, but they can tie a bowline. So
I find it interesting that if you've ever been in scouting, some of the stuff that you learn in scouting stays with you for the rest of your life.
Does.
You know, you could be in a situation 40 years later and you'll remember, I remember how to start a fire if I needed to start a fire, if I was out lost in the desert or something. And so it definitely teaches you life values and life.
Yep, and the kids get to learn from other kids as well. So it's not just, especially at the troop level, which I'm very excited about. It'll be the kids more taking an active role in leadership, and then our younger kids end up taking that role, leading the youth, teaching them these things. And so it's not a parent lecturing a child, tie this way. It's kids helping each other out. And that's kind of cool too.
And you know what? If you think about it, they're doing, as children, what young soldiers learn in the military in basic training and AIT on how to depend on each other, how to support each other. Sometimes if you need a swift kick in the butt. Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of similarities, and a lot of scouting has led people into the military too, because the rank structure, the uniform structure, the fact that there's a way to set up your kitchen, your sleeping area, outhouse area. There are ways to do this all, and so it kind of does feed naturally into the military.
What are some of your favorite scouting events? Would you say like going out for the camp outs, or is that your favorite part, or do you have a favorite part?
My favorite part is seeing the kids mature and grow, to be honest, and seeing them.
Okay.
Yeah, it's kind of a humbling experience. I really love seeing these kids learn something and then do it on their own and then show other people. And the more I've been involved with it, the more I've seen them grow, the more they're able to do it, the more I'm able to step back and just watching, a youth at 5 or 6, somebody else's kid, and you don't know their own psychology or what's going on with them, or anything like that, or how much help they can need, anything like that. You're not sure, but you just provide this environment, and then you get to watch them grow, and they're all getting bigger, and I'm going to shed a tear when they bridge over, and
Yep.
I'm really proud of these kids, the way they grow, the way they mature, the way they're helping other people out. That's the best.
And like you had told me earlier, you're also sharing this experience with your son too. So that has to be special.
Yep. Oh yeah, definitely. In the beginning, he didn't like the fact that I was giving my attention to all the kids instead of just him.
Right.
But he's grown to see that and realize what's going on, and to be able to say, okay, maybe one day I have to give everybody equal attention and not play favorites with one or the other. So I think it's a good learning environment for him for a lot of different ways. And he was just telling me the other day he wants me to be his leader if we get to a scout level 2. I'm looking forward to a break. I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll see what happens.
Okay. And you also had shared that you were an artist, that you'd like to do a lot of painting, that you actually have a business. Does your business have a name?
It does. It's my business. I named it after my boy. My boy's middle name is Cerulean. Cerulean, if you don't know, is the color of the sky near the horizon. So it's kind of a baby blue color. That's cerulean, and so it's a pigment. So his middle name is Cerulean. So I call my company Cerulean Blues LLC, but really it's just something that I've set up for when I do retire, and I can do that full time.
Right.
So I still operate under that name, but really I just go by John Firestone. So I got to sign the paintings Firestone.
So before we get into the really important part, which I want to talk to you about, which is your artwork, Tim wants to know, in the upcoming zombie apocalypse, will you prefer blades or bows?
So I want both.
Both.
And if I have a bow, I can have a blade on a stick, and I can shoot it far.
And retrieve it.
Yeah,
and then reuse
it. Hopefully retrieve it. I want both. My boy has kind of taken to archery a little bit, kind of naturally. So we just, Santa brought him an upgraded bow for Christmas. So we're going to get some lessons on this new bow right here. I'm definitely looking forward to that. But, I can't really go anywhere in a day without having a blade on you too. You might need to cut some twine or something. You always need a pocket knife or something. You always got to be prepared. Right?
I can't think of the guy's name but I've watched The Walking Dead.
Daryl with the crossbow.
Thank you. And I tell you what, that guy's a badass with the crossbow, man. Yep. He could take out anybody from about any distance. And again, they're reusable, so I'm thinking a crossbow might be my because you also have it as a blade if you needed to stab them. So
yeah, you never know.
Just saying. So with your artwork, what was it how did you find out that you had this talent to paint? Because I got to tell you, the reason why it's a talent and a gift is because if it was so easy, everybody could do it. And the fact that you can get this image in your head and then transcribe that image onto a canvas, that's special.
I appreciate it. I've always known. I tell people I've known since I was a fetus, I guess. I've never had another option fully for what I'm supposed to be or do. I've done other things. I still do other things my whole life, but that's my core. That's what I've always done. If I don't do it for too long, I start going a little batty. I get a lot of creation anxiety when I paint. It's actually a hard job, and it's always kind of a scary thing to do. It's not like it's something I do to relax or unwind. It's something I do because I'm always compelled to work in this visual language. So sometimes words fail. Words fail everybody, and there's just something about the power of imagery that can say more, and something about the power of hand-done things that I think we'll always value to some degree or another. So I keep just trying to push myself and get better and grow in that field, and hopefully it finds an audience as well.
When you're painting, do you find yourself like calm or more at ease, or no? Really?
No, never.
Wow.
Never. I go into a zone sometimes, but that
Okay.
zone is not calm. A lot of times I'm listening to some amped up music or something. And
Wow.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah. It's never really a lot of my work can be read as aggressive. So I might light the middle of a canvas on fire. I might rip up a canvas. Recently, I just burnt a whole bunch of paintings and I ripped up a bunch of old writings that I had and I recombined them to make a little snowman village of of old works that are they've served their purpose and now I've
Right.
moved on. So now they're transformed into something different as these little totems
Oh
that
wow.
I have. And I might decide to change that one day too. And it's always an evolution process and it's a way to work in this visual language to say things that I might not be able to verbally convey.
So does something like come to you, an image or something, and you just feel like you have to get it down on canvas? Does it kind of work that way, or no?
Usually it's an idea or a
An idea?
concept. So usually it's something like, I like thinking about signal noise and the relationship between where's the point where there's so much signal that it's just overwhelming and now it's just noise.
Hmm.
Where's that line? How does that look? What's that like? How can I talk about that in a representational landscape? How do I do that? How do I manipulate this medium, which is just dirty oil, and put it on this canvas here to talk about this idea or this concept in a different way? So some people might see it and they might just see like a pretty landscape painting or something, but that's not really what it is or that's not the end of the story. The
Okay.
end of the story, it could have different layers on top of that. Some people want to go further, like reading a book, just want to read the dust jacket, you want to read the whole thing and maybe be informed a little bit, and that's what I hope my work will do down the road.
Tim asked another one. What is this hollow pain? Bone pain, nerve, muscle, cursed by mine enemies?
So I'm not sure 100% what he's talking about, but I think he's quoting some poetry here
Uh huh.
or quoting a different author
Well,
who's talking about this.
pain and noise kind of go hand in hand.
Yes, they do. Pain is a signal, and too much of that pain can get overwhelming. Yep.
Hmm.
And that pain could be emotional, it could be traumatic, it could be physical, it could be all different kind of things like this. And it might compel us to do different things.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how do I talk about that in a painting? That's my challenge. And so that's what I try to do. A lot of times people see my work and they're just like, it's a landscape painting and they're a dime a dozen.
Is
But
that all you do? Is landscape
no,
art?
no,
What other kind of
no.
art do you have?
There's nothing off limits. I'll do
Nothing
whatever.
off limits.
I will do. I will work in whatever medium to convey the message that I want to. If it's wood, if it's casting bronze, if it's whatever, doesn't matter. Whatever medium. I might not even be good at it, but that's part of the message. The medium can be the message.
So you can work
Figure
with
it out and do it.
fire and like oh crap, what do they call them? Not the welding, but the the when they would hammer with
Forges,
huh?
a forge.
Forge,
Yeah.
yeah, something like that.
Yeah, when I was in college, I got to be my professor's assistant.
Okay.
And so and he was a sculpture professor. And I got to help him out and help some students out. And we would work the forge. Everybody wants to make a sword. Nobody's got the arm strength to do that. You don't just get to walk up to a forge and make a sword. About what you can make is a point on the end of a rod and a twisty looking nose hair. That's about all you can make in the beginning. But we would also do bronze casting, aluminum casting, and there's different methods of sculpture too: additive, subtractive, transformative. It's great. So a lot of the art is not the final product, but it's mentally how you translate an idea into something visual, and that's where the art to me really is, and how well you can do it there. So it's
Oh.
not necessarily the final image that you put up on a wall and forget about. It could be more than that.
Okay, Tim said that it was a haiku composed for my hip injury.
Oh.
Yeah, because I had a really hard fall last Tuesday, and I've been out of action for a few days, so I figured I could come in here and sit down for an hour and do my interview, and I'm glad I did because I need to get out of the house. I was going stir crazy.
Yeah.
I don't know how people can stay at home all the time. I used to be one of those people. Let me tell you, I was doing 24/7. I was like video gaming. I had my routine, right? And then I started volunteering. Volunteering was the best thing I ever did, because once I started volunteering, my life just totally changed. I made more friends. I became more open, more, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but it's definitely not good to be sitting at home all the time by yourself. You definitely need to get out. So.
Well, just on that, one of the things I love to do is play video games too. So when
you're a gamer?
when I do get a little bit of downtime, I still like to play video games.
What do you play?
Well. I like a lot of the open world, so I like a Fallout, Skyrim, those type of games,
okay.
those Bethesda games. Any open sandbox type game where you can just kind of explore the landscape and just kind of see what you want to see and do what you want to do. I really like those games. I just did Borderlands, Tiny Tina's Wonderland.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was a really fun game. I'm glad I played that. I definitely like video games too as my escape.
I played Destiny 2 and
yes, that's a good one.
Saints Row, and I like the baseball games like the show, and because I like sports too. But I got to tell you, my favorite game goes way back to the original. Probably it's called Rock Band.
Oh,
right?
okay.
But I have Rock Band 4, and I got to tell you, right, when I bought the peripherals for this stuff back then, you could buy like a guitar for like $40 maybe, but nobody makes any of this equipment anymore. So now you go on to Amazon, and I'm not kidding you, $300, $400, $500 they're asking for this stuff now.
Oh, dang.
I know, it's crazy.
We used to do rock band party nights. We'd have friends come over to the house. We'd all take turns on the different peripherals. We had a good time playing that.
Well, what I love about Rock Band is, number one, I love music. Music speaks to my soul. If I'll be driving, for example, and a song will come on the radio, and it might be a song I haven't heard for a while, and boom, I'll have a flashback to a memory.
Oh, yeah.
You know, and that's just kind of how music has always moved me. So when I'm playing Rock Band, I always wanted to be a rock star when I was a little kid, but I never had the talent to sing. I never had the talent to play an actual guitar. I did play a snare drum, but that's nothing. But with Rock Band, you get the simulation, but it's fun because it's also good hand and eye coordination.
It is. It's fun. It's just fun times. My idea of singing is just yelling louder, so it's terrible when I have to sing, but it's still fun.
Yeah.
Have a drink, sing a song. I see Tim's comment there, Bob Ross, genius or thief, and I would posit he is a misused icon of ASMR.
What's ASMR?
ASMR is this. So you remember Bob Ross? You know Bob Ross, the guy with the afro.
I sure do.
He's kind of the grandfather of this term, and just his manner of speaking, his calm, lower octave. We can do no wrong in our world. That very calm, soothing voice. There's almost a whole industry that's come up around this in a lot of YouTube videos about people who make these sounds that people enjoy hearing. Like it could be the sound of hairbrushing, it could be the sound of rain or something like that, and maybe it makes you tingle in the back of your neck somewhere, something like that, and they call this ASMR.
Okay.
But Bob Ross, he was just kind of this happy-go-lucky fella, in my opinion, after watching the documentaries and stuff, because I loved this guy growing up. I was glued to the TV whenever Bob Ross was on, and I love landscape painting. But this poor guy, his image and likeness has now been used and translated into everything, and I always get Bob Ross gifts every year for Christmas. And Bob Ross, by the way, is a vet. Just
Wow.
just so you guys know, I don't know if he was Marine Corps or if he was Air Force. I thought
Tim
Bob
would
Ross
know.
was Air Force.
Tim's pretty knowledgeable,
Yeah.
so
But yeah, Bob Ross is a vet, and he was doing this series of stuff, but he was kind of so successful that his whole image and likeness got taken over and monetized. And then, he's on T-shirts, he's on everything now, and he's been gone for a while.
And doesn't he also teach something like where you can do the same painting like over and over? I thought I saw him doing something like that one time where because there was an art company and I loved it. I don't remember what it was because it was so many years ago. It's like 50 years ago, it seems like. But there was an art company, and they used to have these art shows where they'd come into your house and they'd show you these paintings.
Mm-hmm.
Well, these paintings are mass-produced.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're real paintings, but I don't know if they're done by machine, by somebody that's actually sitting there by hand. But we had quite a few of those paintings, and they were quite costly, so it was a moneymaker back then.
Well, I was approached to work for one of these companies. This is back when I was on the East Coast. They are made by people, and they're very formulaic. They might as well be close to being paint by numbers without the numbers or lines on there. But anything mechanical that you do enough times and over again, you're going to get faster and better with it. And there are certain types of imagery that sell better than other types of imagery. And it's a whole industry onto its own, and it's one that I didn't want to be part of.
Oh, I don't blame you, because you don't have the creativity there.
Mm-hmm.
Is what I was looking. I was looking to see if Kathy had sent me any events to list at the end of the show, but I don't have any here, so we'll be skipping the events today. Ross enlisted in the Air Force in '61 at 18 and spent 20 years in the service, rising to the rank of Master Sergeant.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, so he was in the Air Force.
Mm-hmm.
Point to John. Sorry, Tim.
Sometimes I get one. Yep. But I mean, Bob Ross, he's kind of if you're a landscape painter in these days, do you know about Bob Ross? Yes, of course. Yeah. There's a lot of other great people out there. And there's also a lot of vets that are working in the field. There's a lot of people that have said, you know what, I don't just want to do this to copy, right? I don't just want to look at something and see if I can do it. That's where you start. But it's not just that. It might be another way to talk about something else that you don't want to talk about. And it's kind of this open world that you can get to. You can do anything with a work of art. You can do anything. You can talk about it any way. I can slash up a canvas if I want to talk about things dealing like that. Like I said, right now I've got some, and a lot of people don't like these, but I like them. But I've got some where I burnt out the center of a painting on a piece of wood, and I got the rest of the landscape painting around it. And then I put over this piece of plastic, which I repaint and then melt down again so you can see behind it.
Oh, wow.
And that is my idea of social media. So that's me talking about social media, saying you got this whole digital life that you present, but you could be really just kind of glossing over some burnout core. Mm-hmm. And that's kind of my way of talking about that theme right there. And you've got this freedom in the visual arts, and so a lot of things, and a lot of vets have a lot of experience that you can pull from a lot of different areas of the world that just make this final image richer. So once you've done enough copying where you feel good that you've got some sort of skill base, now you start dealing with different ideas that you want to deal with that are harder to talk about, Right. So I don't want to go up to somebody and go, you know what, your social media is just fake. You're rotten somewhere and everybody knows it. Well, I'm not really saying that or anything, but Everybody's got things in their life that they're dealing with and working on. And this is my way of talking about that in a way where it just looks like a landscape painting.
That's cool. I like that. Thank you for sharing that.
Yep.
So before we go, I just wanted to remind or let our viewers know, here at the Warrior Healing Center, we have art hanging in the walls all over the place that are for sale. And John Firestone here is one of the artists. Some of his paintings are here on display. You don't have to be a veteran to come here. You can come in and you want to look at the art, and any art that you purchase, I believe a percentage of it goes to support the center here.
So 100% of mine will go to the center.
Wow.
Yeah. So, and I just rotated some work, so I've got some new work that's in here now. So if you're interested, come down, make a deal with them. 100% of that will go to the center.
Wow, that's very generous.
Yeah, and then I show other places and in other competitions and other galleries too. So if you're in Bisbee, go look it up.
Okay.
Gallery 32, got a solo show there now. You never know. Maybe some of them pieces will end up here too.
And I don't want to get too much into your art showing stuff, because I really hope that you'll connect with the veteran-owned businesses here at the Warrior Healing Center. Eric and Robert, they do a veteran-owned business stream on Thursday evenings, and I think you'd be perfect to come in and show them your actual artwork and stuff, and help to not only promote your business, but to network with other veteran-owned businesses here in our community. So I echo that sentiment. Thank you, John. So again, I don't have any events to announce today. I will be on air next Friday. Oh, I did want to ask you one thing. If you are a veteran and you would like to come in and sit down here with me and share your story, and it's live streamed, and then it's live streamed on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, which is a gaming site, and there's like 4 or 5 other different platforms that these interviews stream to. It's a great way to get your story out and to preserve your story for future generations, because the interviews, they don't come down, they stay up there. So it's a great way to preserve your story. If it's something that you're interested in, I would encourage you to contact me through the Warrior Healing Center, or you can email me at mikezehr@msn.com, and in the subject, just put down live stream, and I will get with you and I will arrange to have you come in and sit down, and we'll talk. Okay? So, John, thank you for coming down out of the mountains.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for your time today, and thank you for sharing your story, and thank you for your service to our country. Appreciate it very much.
All right. Thank you.
All right, everybody, have a great day, and I will see you next Friday. Bye-bye.